Make sure that content creators have a voice to say, hey, we would really like crawlers to adopt it because it would ease the integration and the deals we can strike down the line. If I can identify every crawler, then it's much easier for me to say, okay, maybe this one we will discuss and have a specific rate limit. For this one, we will do a special type of payment system. For this other one, we will just allow it. I want to allow the Internet Archive. I will provide the content for free. I know it's them because I have their public key. Mm-hmm. So I think this is really the most important.
Hello everyone and welcome to This Week in Net. It's the May the 30th, 2025 edition. I'm your host, João Tomé, coming to you from our Lisbon office library. This week we're going to talk about AI in a different way than usual. In this case, it's all about how Cloudflare is proposing a standard where bots use cryptography so that website owners can verify their identity. Why is this relevant? In the age of AI, the relationship between content creators and AI companies is crucial, so this can help with that. To talk about it, we have Thibault Meunier, Senior Research Engineer. Thibault was here in the Lisbon office with me and is from our amazing research team. He was already in our show and it's always a treat to hear from him. At the end of the show, Kevin Guthrie, one of our principal engineers, goes over a blog post he wrote called Performance Measurements and the People Who Love Them. So if you'd like to know more about performance measurements, this is the blog post and also the clip for you at the end of this episode. And without further ado, here's my conversation with Thibault Meunier. Hello everyone and welcome to This Week in Net. With me, I have Thibault Meunier. Did I pronounce it correctly in French?
It's correct.
My French is not always good. We're in our Lisbon office. You're visiting. Typically, you're based in France, right?
Yes, I'm based out of France. I'm based in Toulouse, which is very close to the border with Spain. And yeah, visiting Lisbon for the week.
For those who don't know, can you guide us through a bit of your role here at Cloudflare? It has been 6 years, right? You work with the research team since the get-go?
Yes, so I've been at Cloudflare for 6 years, which is definitely a tremendous amount of time. Through which I've been able to explore a lot of topics. On the research team, focusing on cryptography and how can we make cutting edge technology and improve the web and the internet. And I do think that's what we're going to discuss today.
It is. There was this recent blog post with a catchy title, actually, Forget IPs, using cryptography to verify bot and agent traffic. In a nutshell, can you explain to us a bit what is this and why is so relevant in this day and age? Because we got great feedback. People are definitely noticing.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, the catch of the blog is when you try to identify bots on the internet, what you can have is you can use IP addresses, which is the address to the server is using to send requests. Or you can use user agent, which is something the server is placing on the HTTP request to identify themselves. The issue with both approaches, with IP addresses, there are a limited number of them. They are quite hard to manage, and they can be costly because you have to pay for these. On the contrary, user agents, they are free, but anyone can use them. So if I'm running a bot, I can say, hey, I'm Google, I'm OpenAI. And so from a crawler perspective, it's quite spoofable as well. And so what we try to do is identify this problem and say, maybe we can use some more novel solution and novel approach to better identify this crawler and for crawler to better identify themselves. This allowed crawler to make sure they cannot be spoofed. So no one can use OpenAI or claim to be like Google. And at the same time, for Origin, it's very valuable because you know with certainty that the requests you see are coming from a specific crawler.
It's a really interesting topic. As you're mentioning, the user agents not always clear, could be spoofed, and but there's also this this talk. Matthew Prince, our CEO, talks about that many times recently, because content creators are dealing with major shifts. Search engines are dealing with major shifts. We see Google having AI overview on top now, for example. In this situation where AI is definitely creating opportunities, creating a different UI almost for people to interact and get information. How can this help in that content creators, those who create content, to be more protected in a sense?
Yes, I think it really helps in the way that in order, like if you want to like discuss with crawler to like for people to like access your content and like have the right to say, okay, I allow Google to access my content in this specific way, I allow OpenAI to access my content in this specific way, you need to be able to like identify them, and like the crawler need to be able to identify themselves to you. At the moment, if you use like IP addresses or if you use like user agent, it's like kind of like half solution, like you cannot really do that. And so like as a content creator now, I can say, hey, like we have a deal with like Google, we have a deal with OpenAI, we have a deal with like other people, and like now that we have the deal, we also have like the way for crawler to identify themselves, so you can actually like see, okay, are you respecting the deal? What like how can I like measure your content? And so really for like crawlers which like are honest and like are really seeking to deliver and like strike some deals with content creator, that's something which is very powerful.
So it can actually help that relation, like between AI providers, LLMs providers in a sense, but also content creators, to make that relation more feasible, more direct in a way.
I think it like really helps make that. Before you had like IP addresses which like were used and like can be used to an extent to do like similar things. Once again, costly, harder to manage, and like not as flexible when you start to have like multiple servers with like different intent. Being able to have like the flexibility to know, okay, like this is maybe you like have like this is an image crawling service. This will be used for training. This is like a search engine. This will be used for like retrieval, augmented generation. And so this really allow and like empowers to have like more flexibility and more granular control around how you deal with these questions.
I'm curious also about the feedback. Some say AI is here to simply disrupt and maybe even put out of business content creators. But in recent months, even we've seen AI platforms even trying to promote content creators as well, because they need the content as well. Good content makes better AI. How did you saw in terms of feedback? What was the feedback we got from this specifically?
I think this was not specific to AI. Like this is a problem that like existed before. Like crawlers have been crawling the web for like ages. You had like various bots that like try to like authenticate to your website, and this is a use case that existed before. It has been exacerbated by AI because the amount of content and like the newcomers within the space have to like find something and may not have like as mature state and relation as existed before.
Actually, before you go to my question, let's add a bit of context. As you were saying, and we have on Cloudflare Radar a list of verified bots. There's the good bots, the bad bots. For those who don't know too much about bots, can you explain to us a bit of how they have been helpful for search engines to crawl the web and give good results to people, how they have been already a part of the industry, if you want?
Yes. So basically, the idea for having bots on the internet is not new. You have people accessing the internet and like reading it in a web version, which is rendered in a web browser. And you have like bots that like try to like automate some task, which could be like quite hard to do. You can think like when Google like came and say, okay, like I want like a search engine for like the whole web, but they needed to crawl the web first. They need to like analyze the links that are in there in order to make like informed decision about how do I rank these pages. So like there was like this whole industry with like SEO, for instance. How can I rank better on like search engine? Because from a visibility perspective for websites, it's like very powerful. This is the case for like web, but you can think also like some bots like the Internet Archive, which allow the web to be like safeguarded for posterity. I mean, this is not human traffic. It's not like me like printing a page and putting it in big books. I can just use like a bot to do that for me. And this was useful before. This is similar mechanism now, as we like there's more of it due to AI.
Of course, there's a clear increase in AI crawl and not AI search and AI crawlers specifically recently. On that regard, I'm curious also about the changes that with AI came in terms of the type of crawler? Did the type of crawler change in some way?
I think it's hard to identify like the type of crawlers. Definitely the behaviors you were mentioning like have been changing. There's been an increase in the number of crawler that identifies like search engine. There's been an increase in the number of crawlers that say, hey, we will use this data for training purposes. And there has been an increase overall in the number of crawls saying, yes, I'm Google Chrome. You maybe yes, maybe no. This is like hard to verify. Cloudflare has been to that extent doing a lot of work trying to like confirm and assert based on like the user agent information that we receive. Is it actually true? Is like the Chrome browser that we receive actually a Chrome browser? Is it correlated to some human event? Is it another crawler? This is like an interesting area to explore because, as I've mentioned before, this is like open. Like the signals that we have are not precise yet. To that extent, being able to have a clear signal about bot ownership is very good and like an improvement in the state of the web.
You mentioned already SEO. It's a whole industry. There's many people doing that, trying to put their websites more search optimization in that perspective. And there's a lot of changes now. The crawling is more on the news now because content creators are seeing that, hey, AI bots are not sending, not AI bots, AI chatbots are not sending traffic to our website. So we don't have a way to monetize our content. They use the information, but they don't send traffic to our website, and the ads industry is related to that. In this current situation, and Cloudflare has AI audit to block potentially AI crawlers that are not respecting content creators in terms of, hey, I don't want AI crawlers to crawl my website, which is kind of different from the search engine perspective where everyone wants their website to be crawled to appear on Google search engines. The higher, the better. So it's the paradigm shifted completely now that, hey, I'm not sure if I want that. But to be honest, there's this discussion, and I was a journalist, so I go about like news organizations. They want also to continue relevant in AI chatbots. They want their content to contribute to the conversation that is taking place there. In this context that we already went over, how is the feedback that we've been getting specifically?
I don't think we've got any specific feedback on this one. As you've mentioned, people want their content to be like as visible as possible. I want my website to be like on top of Google. I want my website to be on top of Bing. And ideally, I would like my website to be referred by chatbot, which means I don't know, ChatGPT, Anthropic, or etc. The biggest question probably is like, how do I control how like this my website is presented? Does it actually like bring value? And like, is it the type of visibility that I want? And these are open questions.
In terms of, we put out the blog, many saw it, different companies, even AI companies. How was the reaction there specifically? A good one?
Yeah, so far the reactions have been like very positive. I mentioned before, this is not a new problem. Like there's been crawler for ages. IPs were okay for quite some time, but with the multiplication of crawling in recent years and like in like recent months even, this has been positive as something that like we need to adopt. Cloudflare has like adopted an approach that like we want to make sure that like this standard is public. This is not like a Cloudflare push standard. We really want to make sure the standard is strong. We work with like various companies, should be crawlers, should be publishers, to ensure that like the proposal that like we're putting out actually gets like a lot of vetting, actually gets a lot of eyes to make sure that like it's sanitized, that like anyone can use it, that we're not introducing new risk as we're trying to solve our problem. So this has been very positive across the board. People would like to adopt it, and like we're really trying to balance how quickly we should actually like deploy it, because this is a needed problem to solve, while balancing the fact that like this seems to be a new solution and we really need to be careful as we're rolling it out.
Makes sense. Can we give specific examples of, may that be AI companies or others that have been reacting to this specifically?
Yes. So as we mentioned on the blog, OpenAI has been like very positive and like receptive. They are one of the company like having and like seeking deal with like publishers, and they need to identify themselves to like make sure that like publishers actually trust them when they make requests. We had like similar discussion with various other companies, which I would not be able to name here. You can look directly at the IETF mailing. There's like a wide range of companies which are interested in like participating and engaging with the IETF to make sure the standard that is being proposed is like a good standard for the web and the internet.
Typically, standards take some time to be discussed, implemented, and then they are part of the internet as we know it. There have been many cases of those. How urgent is this one, given that we're talking about MCP servers now to enable agents to perform tasks in our name? Where this industry is changing so much right now. There's so much excitement. How urgent and even feasible of making this quickly we're seeing?
I mean, how urgent? That's something we could have done like 5 years ago. That's something we like are seeing like a real need and interest today. Not solely like for AI companies. We've mentioned like for bots, like that's the case for like existing crawlers. And so having like more eyes with AI is definitely like interesting and like relevant. Brings some more push to like make sure that like we can gain adoption for such a standard. As you mentioned, the timescale for standard is like quite long. Probably we should not be talking weeks for something that like would be probably like adopted by like a lot of like companies and like people on the internet. So at this moment, we're thinking about like having something actually a proper standard within a year. That doesn't preclude adoption earlier. Having like adoption and like early feedback in terms of like what are the limitations, in terms of like can we actually in terms of like efficiency, in terms of like bandwidth usage, in terms of like signature verification, does it have like actual like worsen, for instance, like CPU usage? Is it actually like the trade-off that like we're making between we want strong authentication for bots, the right one? We can actually like do that despite having a standard. The standard is really making sure that like we have the open discussion, that people can like bring in their feedback. If they have like their implementation, that like happy to do so. For now, we have a JavaScript and a Go implementation, but probably to like scale for the web, we will need a lot more than that. So this is really a balance once again, not having a standard. A lot of protocols have been adopted without having like necessarily a standard. And I think it's not really trying to like make a standard to say, hey, we have a standard, you can use it. We're really trying and like believing that like it should be vetted by a lot of companies to have like the feedback in.
So it can take a bit of time because of that.
It can take a bit of time. Once again, the internet is like a moving system and the web is a moving system. We really want to make sure that we're doing like the right thing. We have some proposals already that like people can look at. All the documents are public on the internet. We have people can like directly engage on mailing lists if like they agree, if they disagree. Definitely we're open for feedback, and like there already has been some changes that we've made to it.
There's of course big players. There's Google. There's OpenAI. There's Facebook. There's big players in this area. There's Cloudflare that has millions of customers. If I'm a website, have a website, I own a website, I'm a content creator, and I'm hearing this for the first time, what should I know, or even call to action? Like, what should I do regarding this? Or maybe just be aware of it and not do anything. But what is the typical website owner behavior knowing this?
Yes, I think already being aware of it is like a big part, and like thanks for doing that, like this podcast. Probably like the biggest thing at the moment is making sure that like bots and crawlers would be okay to like adopt it. Make sure that like content creators have a voice to say, hey, we would really like crawlers to adopt it, because it would ease the integration and like the deals we can strike down the line. If I can identify every crawler, then like it's much easier for me to say, okay, maybe like this one I would like we will discuss and like have a specific rate limit. For this one we will do like a special like type of payment system. For this other one we will just allow it. Like I want to allow the Internet Archive, I will like provide the content for free. I know it's them because I have their public key. So I think like this is really like the most important. Make sure that like as a content creator, I have a voice to say I really want bots to be able to identify themselves. And for bots, if you are a bot owner and like you want to identify yourself, well, you can do so like already. This is like valuable, as we mentioned, because like IP addresses may be like tricky, especially if you multiply them, want to localize your content. And user agents are spoofable, so like make sure that like your identity when you're making requests is actually pretty preserved.
It creates something that maybe it's lacking. Actually, working with the radar team, I've seen this over and over again, like user agent. Someone can put like, I'm a very stupid person user agent. So user agents can definitely be changed in a way, but this creates trust in this relation, right? Bots relation.
It does, and like it's like complementary to user agent. User agent is like a kind of like lightweight signal to allow, hey, like I'm using Chrome. If you have specific content for Chrome, just serve it to me. I'm using Firefox. If you have specific content for Firefox, serve it to me. And this is because like clients, such as like web browsers, may have different implementation of APIs, should be like CSS, HTML, JavaScript, and others. And so as an origin, sometimes I want to serve slightly different content to make sure that like my content is served and like faced differently based on the browser. So like user agent have a value, and this is like very distinct. This is something that we call like a signature agent, because a signature agent is more, hey, I'm Google, and like in this case I'm using Chrome, but maybe in this case I'm using Firefox. And like these are complementary signals, and it's totally fine for the user agent not to be authenticated. Like you don't need a signature to say, hey, I want Chrome content. Like there's no value into that. However, probably when you're sending a request as like Google crawler, for instance, you want to sign your request because you want to show that like it's actually you making the request. And so these are two distinct concepts, even though they have been kind of like interleaved because there was no solution to actually like authenticate yourself.
We have the situation in Cloudflare that, for example, for post-quantum cryptography, that was enabled by Cloudflare. So the customers, even if they don't know what post-quantum is, have that already, that standard being enabled in their websites. For those who don't know, post-quantum cryptography here is to make sure that when quantum computers arrive, the cryptography that is old, that is behind us, is protected. Like your data is still protected even if a quantum computer comes and can break the old encryption, right? But how do you see this take the same path as post-quantum, like in terms of Cloudflare enabling it for its customers? So if I'm a Cloudflare customer and Cloudflare does this with the new standard, I'm already with this as a possibility, this signature relation as a possibility.
So this is like much earlier than like post-quantum, and like a different problem. Post-quantum had like years of like academic research, of development, and like it's still like a hard problem that like Cloudflare definitely is like pushing hard. I think in here we're still like a bit new, but definitely like Cloudflare, as we will see and like engage with like various crawler, with various content creators, we will make sure that like this is enabled like smoothly throughout our stack. We already provide this type of detection for like verified bots on our platform, and this is a new way to verify bots with more confidence. So this will be provided as well. One of the things is this is not a Cloudflare standard. If you are on a multi-CDN setup, if you want to like change platform, you should be able to do so. Once again, that's why we're doing work at the IETF and in the open. So like you're not locked with Cloudflare. If you want to go, you should still have the ability to trust bots that like you have partnership with. So you should be able to do that like on other CDNs. So Cloudflare will enable that and push that because, well, we think it's great, but we're definitely not blocking you from like exploring other solution or even have verification on your own premise.
One of the things I was also trying to understand a bit here is how long can this really be in place? It depends potentially of the adoption, of the feedback that the protocol has, but given the urgency, can we put some timeline into it?
Once again, I would not put a timeline. I do think we can adopt it pretty fast, but given this is something that like needs a lot of coordination, we should not like, I don't know, sometimes it's good to not trust yourself too much. I've written the standard. I do think it's well written or like in a well-written shape that like it can be put out, that people can assess it. We've got good feedback. I do think bots can like start using it. Origin, when they're using Cloudflare, for instance, can start using it. We've put out examples on like how can you have, if you have your home server, can you validate like these when you use Caddy? But probably like to have it at the web scale, probably we need some like implementation in like various languages. We need implementation and plugin for like Nginx, for Apache. We need like other CDN to like start coming and say, hey, like we will adopt this standard and like implement it as well. So we have like actually like a vibrant ecosystem, and this can take time. It really, I do think we're on like the right path in terms of like we're seeing a lot of traction. Can we keep the momentum? I do hope so. But I won't put like a strong date on it.
Is there a chance that this protocol also helps avoid abuses, like someone is crawling and we don't want it to crawl your website? So this trust relation that could be more highlighted with this could also remove what you don't want to crawl your website?
It may, but this is kind of like a side effect. This standard is really sought so that when you are an honest bot, you can sign your request and identify yourself. This allows first to like identify possible like abuse or breach. You can imagine you have like a verified bot that is making too many requests, then you can identify it. But this is very different from bots which like may appear as malicious to content creators. And in this case, this is like a side problem. Here we like already removed a lot of the content of the like honest bots that are querying your website. Then you still have like the bots that like you don't want. This is a distinct problem. But given that like now we can somehow better distinguish bots which are trying to be honest from bots which are not, we should be able to more aggressively pursue and challenge the bots that we think are not wanted.
Going a bit to your work in general, you've worked in many different topics since you joined Cloudflare. One close to heart, which is the end of CAPTCHAs. A very cool blog post you wrote about that. Let's end this madness, you said in the title, which was a great one. Looking at the work you've been doing for 6 years now at Cloudflare, what is the main highlight that you think it's like part of the research area of Cloudflare's culture?
I think research culture is definitely interesting at Cloudflare, is that there's like this unique environment where Cloudflare has like a massive network. We have and like try to be like a bridge between content creators and like users on the web, and striking a good balance is like really hard. As you mentioned, like Cloudflare is trying to like end CAPTCHAs. There's been a lot of work to that extent, still a lot of work ahead of us. And so I do think it's been like really, over the years, a privilege to have been able to like push somehow the internet in like various directions. And like hopefully like in a good way. You can think the work we did with WhatsApp, for instance, to like make sure that like public keys are actually like delivered securely is like pretty good. The work like the research team has done on Private Relay to make sure that like users' IP and private information are not exposed is like really a marvelous effort and collaboration that like Cloudflare has the opportunity to do. The effort that like we're trying to do, and like this is a multi-year effort across Cloudflare to like reduce the weight of CAPTCHA, make sure that like content creators and bots have a way to like engage in a meaningful manner is definitely something that's great. Is there one specific highlight? Not really our topics, but overall it's like definitely been an exciting journey.
And it's quite interesting to see that it's a research team, it helps other teams, it collaborates with the whole industry, with standards, we've been talking about that. So it has this university feel about it, but it also, because Cloudflare has a big network, many customers, the work that is being done actually has a very immediate application, right?
No, it has. And that, I think, the work of like Cloudflare research is definitely sometimes very exploratory. And like even when it is applied, it's still exploratory. And that's like one of the mission of Cloudflare. Can we actually bring some cutting-edge research actually like in real-world use cases?
Let's do a quick fire of questions. Maybe we'll find something interesting here. What's one protocol or tech idea you think it's underrated?
I don't know. I think TLS is like definitely like a nice layer that there has seen a lot of progress. and that could be used more.
TLS in terms of security,
So I
bringing
think
security.
TLS in terms of protocol, one area which I'm personally at the moment really interested in is anonymous credentials, which allow people to have certain credential proof facts about them without necessarily revealing the whole credential. So you can imagine you have you have let's say an identity card with your name, with your place of birth and etc. And you can reveal only certain information about it. So this is true for identity card, but you can imagine it's true for an account that you have at a company. If you have let's say a Cloudflare account, you could prove the number of your number of zone is between 10 and 20. And maybe that proves something about yourself. This is, once again, very research, but very interesting.
You could redesign one part of the internet, what would that be?
More encryption.
More encryption
I think
from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not having encryption from the beginning, and trying to make sure that we add that layer of encryption is something that I think is really important that could have been designed initially. At the same time, it's simpler to design systems which are not end-to-end encrypted and or not encrypted at all. That was first version of the web based on trust, and it worked. And it made actually prove that you can use an interconnected network and it has some value. You add encryption, and yeah, we're trying to do it.
Last but not least, what excites you the most about where AI and cryptography are headed?
I think this is interesting because AI and cryptography overall tend to be in a lot of conflict at the moment. And this is because in a lot of cases, AI operates on raw data. Being able to bridge that gap would be interesting. Can AI operate on encrypted data at a speed and a scale which is as efficient and needed as AI requires right now? And how does that play into user privacy, user trust, and user right to encryption?
So it can help the path of all of what AI is promising right now, in a sense.
Cryptography may have a role here. What type of role? I think it's rather broad, as what type of role should AI play? Rather broad as well, and an open question.
There's many things changing in the industry. MCP, it's something recent. There's a lot of excitement in terms of developers of what they can do with that specifically. Is there a use case you see that could be really interesting in those areas?
I do think where I think about MCP, maybe half uninformed, is when S3 was launched, for instance, you had storage already. S3 provided a convenient API so that you can store object on a remote server, have a way to provide it, and have a blob storage very efficient. In a way, you can think of MCP similar. It's an API. There's no fundamental technology to it, but the fact that it can be adopted by more people may help to build more tools and have something stronger that comes out of it.
Makes sense. Thank you so much, Thibault.
You're welcome.
This was great. And that's a wrap.
I am Kevin Guthrie. I am based out of Atlanta, working cross-functionally for the Pingora team and the Speed team. I'm a principal system software engineer at Cloudflare. So I'm here to talk about a blog post I wrote it only got published a couple of days ago, but I wrote it several months ago, called Performance Measurements and the People Who Love Them. And this is a blog where I talk about the company / my experiences trying to make performance measurements more uniform across the company and outside of the company, and make them more useful and approachable to Cloudflare employees, customers, people all over the place. Performance measurements is one of those things that I've been interested in for a long time. And I got approached by some teams at Cloudflare that were helping customers measure their own latency and understand the latency measurements that they were seeing and how it reflected on Cloudflare. Was Cloudflare good, Cloudflare bad? How do you measure these things and communicate them in a concise and consistent way? So the blog post starts by going through some definitions, saying, okay, if you're talking about latency, you need to be able to talk about things that have actual definitions. Latency has a sort of vague definition of something starts and then it ends, and that's the latency. When you're talking about web latency, it gets a little bit more complicated because there are inherently two different pictures of latency, the server side, the client side. So you have to say, okay, am interested in the latency from the client side because the clients are the people who care about the latency that they're seeing. I guess the real bottom line is we have some tools that we are going to be releasing eventually so that customers can do this sort of analysis and see these sort of results. But that part is a work in progress. And that's why we say it's coming soon. Once you have a handle on the statistics and the math to back it up, you can get a lot of powerful information out of a simple data set. Like we are just using individual request timing, but with some probability analysis and statistics, you're able to get a much more powerful set of tools from just this simple data set. This is the sort of information you would get from like repeated browser tests or real user measurement. Those two things are important, but they're hard to do on a really rapid basis. Request testing you can do very quickly and in a very well automated way. And being able to get that sort of aggregate data from individual requests is a powerful way to use statistics and software. So you can look forward to seeing these tools and doing this sort of analysis yourself in 2025.